60% of family businesses fail in the second generation, and 90% fail in the third. That's what I was told when I joined my family's business. Consultants, family business advisors, even people in non-family businesses all thought it was important for me to know I had a 1 in 3 chance of being successful if I joined my family's business. It's as if they're saying to me, Jeremy, don't join your family's business. Go get a real job. The consultants even had a fancy term for these stats. They called it the 1/3 rule. And what this meant is, statistically, a third of family businesses succeed into the second generation. And of that, a third again succeeds into the third. And I'm assuming a third again would succeed into the fourth. So when you do the math, a family business has a 1 in 10 chance of making it into the third generation. These are depressing numbers. But you know what? These stats, these rules, they're bullshit. Building a business that lasts 25, 50, or even 100 years is not easy. Family business or not, building a business that can sustain multiple generations of leadership is no easy feat. But in this room today, we have businesses doing just that. Families that are ignoring the consultants and the naysayers and are building businesses that stand out and are remarkable. And we can learn from these businesses, and I believe there is a secret sauce to their longevity. Family businesses that thrive for 25, 50, or 100 years demonstrate a key competency, the ability to continually reinvent themselves. Because in this economy and in this market, you can't afford to stand still. It'll kill you. Families that thrive through the decades understand that standing still is not an option and are constantly rethinking and repositioning their business for the times. And this has been a lesson drilled into me over and over again since joining my family's business. David Ocker, who's a branding guru, wrote, "A winning strategy today may not prevail tomorrow. It might not even be relevant tomorrow." And this is true for family businesses as well. What worked for the first generation is no indication of success for the second. Strategies have to change, especially in this business climate. We are seeing across all industries seismic shifts in the way businesses are built and brands are grown. And you don't have to look far to see these changes happening. Just look at the forces at play on Ontario's manufacturing sector. According to Stats Canada, in 1980, over 20% of Canada's jobs came from manufacturing. And the vast majority of those were based here in Ontario. Today, less than 10% of Canada's jobs come from manufacturing. Those jobs have been displaced by gains in productivity, global competition, and the impact of the high Canadian dollar. For example, a decade ago, in March 2002, the dollar was at 63 cents. Now, it's just below parity. And for most of last year, it was above parity. So no matter how you slice it, manufacturers have to adapt to these market forces or they'll die. But these forces are not limited to the manufacturing sector alone. All industries are being forced to adapt and change. Even my family's business, which was founded as a recruiting agency, has undergone dramatic shifts in the past decade. The core catalyst for our change has been technology. The internet has profoundly changed our business model, our value proposition, and the way we form and build client relationships. The strategies that made our family successful in the 90s are no longer relevant today. We had to change. My parents, they're here in the audience today, Donna and Marcus, they founded an IT staffing firm in 1989. During the 90s and the early 2000s, the business did really well. It was a lucrative time for our family's business. But when I joined the business in 2004, the market had changed. The tech boom was over, the dot-com bubble had burst, and Ontario was coming out of a mild recession. But these forces were largely superficial to what changed our family business. We'd gone through recessions before. The business has been around since '89. So in the past, when a recession hit, we hunkered down, we cut our headcount, and we increased our marketing. But this time was different. This time, we were seeing how the internet was going to reshape our industry. Technology hit my family business in 3 ways. First, it eroded the bottom of the market. Job boards like Monster Workopolis, search engines like Google, and social networks like LinkedIn have all had a profound impact on our industry. Essentially, what they've done is taken power away from recruiting agencies and put them into the hands of job seekers and hiring managers. And in many cases, what they've done is displace the need for using recruiting agencies entirely. Second, technology changed or has allowed for the growth of competition. The number of competitors in our space has grown precipitously. And what's happened is technology has lowered the barriers of entry to our industry. And third, and this is probably the most destructive one for our business, technology changed our client relationships. We understood and we were managing the first 2 forces, But we were completely taken by surprise by how much the internet could reshape the way we built and managed client relationships. We did not foresee the total collapse of our business development processes. Let me put this in context. During the 90s, our salespeople could generate a new piece of business every single week. If they were diligent with their calls and they built solid client relationships, they were successful. But in 2004, the tables had turned. What used to take our salespeople a week to achieve was now taking them a month. And now, more and more, we were being forced to rely on cold calling and other forms of push marketing just to keep the funnel full. And I have to say, this period was a grind. I joined the company as the director of business development, but I found myself in the trenches dialing for dollars just to keep the business going. And I hate cold calling. But what else was I going to do? When the business isn't there, you dig down and you work harder, especially if it's your family's business. But the irony of this was, working harder did not improve our situation. It actually got worse. Not only were we expending 4 times the amount of effort to bring in the same amount of business, we were bringing in the wrong clients. My parents had built their business based on strong client relationships, even partnerships with their clients. But the clients that we were attracting in 2004 were contrary to those values. We were bringing in the cast-offs and the clients that everyone else had fired, and the companies that were unprofitable, unethical, and unpleasant to work with. I can take hard work, but dealing with bad clients is a different story. We had to change. Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again but expecting a different result. I agree. But change is hard. It's often counterintuitive to do something different. It's hard to give up infrastructure and processes you've already invested in. And it's hard to give up or stop doing things that you're good at. But when the wheels fall off the bus like they did in our situation, all that resistance flies out the window. Every year, my parents and I, we get together for an annual family council. Usually these are pretty calm events. We do our strategic planning and we set our priorities for the year ahead. It's a mixture of family and business topics. But our family council in 2004 was anything but calm. I was freaking out. I'd quit a lucrative career the year before, and now I found myself dialing for dollars in a business that seemed to be failing. I couldn't believe what I'd gotten myself into, and I was actually regretting joining the family business. I was seriously considering going back to the real world and proving everyone right about second-generation failures. But this proved to be one of the most important meetings of my career, because this is when I learned what it meant to be an entrepreneur. I was frustrated and scared because I had grown up in a family with a successful business. And when I saw this business falling apart around me, I didn't know what I was doing wrong. And if I'm honest with myself, I thought the failings of the business were my fault. But my parents taught me in this meeting, it's not about the business you've built, but the business you're building. My mom and dad weren't freaking out and thinking the sky was falling, even though I was. They knew from their own entrepreneurial successes that you create your own success. And that they taught me a business has a life cycle. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to be prepared to recreate, rethink, and blaze new trails. The strategies that had worked for them in the past were no longer applicable. It was time for us to change directions. There's a wonderful book out there called The Lean Startup. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best business books I've read in the last few years. In the book, Eric Ries argues a business must constantly decide whether to persevere with their strategy or pivot. A pivot is a change of strategies. For example, if you hit a wall or get lulled into a plateau, you face a choice. You can maintain your strategy and persevere, or you can change directions and implement a new strategy. Pivot. We chose to pivot. In our family council in 2004, we made a commitment to change. And we did that by making 2 resolutions. First, never cold call again. This was a resolution that was near and dear to my heart because I hate cold calling. But it was bigger than that. What we were talking about was to stop using push-based marketing tactics like cold calling, advertising, and other forms of direct marketing because they weren't working for us anymore. The second, never be beholden to the wrong clients again. Life's too short to deal with bad clients. We had no idea how we were going to achieve these 2 objectives when we set them, but we knew our business was dependent on them. And these 2 resolutions led to the rethinking and rebranding of our family's business. We began our pivot by analyzing our business, our customers, and our market. And it quickly became evident to us that our business model was obsolete. We were getting the cast-off clients because our good clients had changed their hiring practices. We weren't needed anymore. This was a painful realization, but one I think many family businesses have to come to terms with. The value proposition that makes the first generation successful won't remain relevant forever. Typically, brands need to be refreshed every 3 to 7 years. You refresh a brand for 2 reasons: relevance and reflection. Relevance is all about fashions and tastes. What looks hot today may look passé in a few years from now. A website, for example, only has a shelf life of 3 to 4 years, and then it can look dated and even hurt your brand's credibility. Even big brands like Coca-Cola and Pepsi go through regular brand updates. In the past 20 years, each of these brands has updated their logo and identity systems 3 times. And they do this to stay relevant with the times. The second reason for rebranding is reflection. You change your brand to reflect changes in your business and your business model. As your business evolves, you adjust your brand to make sure it's telling the right stories, creating the right customer experiences, and delivering the right value proposition. And this was the reason for rebranding my family's business. With the erosion of the bottom of the market and the shift in our client relationships, we had to find a new way to be successful. The strategies that had worked for my parents were no longer applicable, so we needed to go find a new fishing hole. People often say, follow your passions. I've heard this phrase so many times it's cliche, but that's exactly what we did. We followed our passions to reposition our business. My family's strength is in sales and marketing. This is what we do. This is what we geek out on. But before 2004, we'd never considered delivering this passion or expertise to the market. Rather, we always focused it internally and used it to build our own business. We believed we were in the IT staffing business, not experts in branding, sales, and marketing. But when we were honest with ourselves, the choice was obvious. We chose to reposition our business from IT staffing to recruiting sales and marketing professionals. And from there, extend our services into speaking, consulting, and other advisory services related to branding and business development. Once we identified this niche, we built our strategy to go after it. This is the essence of a pivot. A pivot isn't about doing something a little bit better, a little bit more efficiently. It's a change of directions. Our pivot had 3 major changes: a new brand, new operations, and a new go-to-market strategy. We changed our company's name from Miller & Associates to LeapJob, and we created a fresh new identity to signal to the market that our business had undergone a major shift. We changed our operations. This is the most important part of your pivot. A pivot isn't about putting lipstick on the pig and telling the world that you're different. You actually have to be different. For us, that meant creating new services, implementing new software systems, doing a lot of staff training, and spending a lot of time rethinking how we ran our business. And we also changed our go-to-market strategy. Technology changed the way we built and managed client relationships, so we dove in and embraced technology. We invested a lot of resources to understand our web presence, social media, search engine optimization, and content marketing so we could engage our clients in entirely different ways. We didn't go through evolutionary change, we went through revolutionary change. And this was a painful and scary transition. We were making a lot of decisions with not a lot of data. And not all of our ideas paid off, but the big ones did. Within 9 months, the business turned a corner and moved back into profitability and growth. And the business has been evolving and changing ever since. This experience of pivoting has been baked into the fabric of our family business and is helping to propel us forward. For example, in 2010, we took the consulting practice that we envisioned at the start of this pivot and spun it off to create Sticky Branding, a branding and business development consultancy. And these pivots and these shifts are what's making our family successful into the 2nd generation. But pivoting your business is not easy or natural. It requires a culture and an attitude to support and embrace these changes. And this is a critical lesson for family business. To grow through the generations requires a culture of entrepreneurship. Your next generation has to be equipped with the leadership skills to continually rethink and reposition your business for the times. And this is a core responsibility of the 1st generation. Too many founders don't let go and hold on to control for too long. This is a mistake. If you hold on to control for too long, you're cursing the next generation to be caretakers, not entrepreneurs. Caretakers are great at maintaining the strategy and persevering, but they lack the essential skills of pivoting. And if your business can't pivot, if your next generation can't pivot, the business won't survive. I've been very fortunate. My parents have been constantly mentoring me in the skills of entrepreneurship. They've never been caught up on what the business was. Rather, they're always questioning what the business should be. And they've immersed me in all aspects of the business to make sure I have the leadership skills to carry the business forward. Every family business has a similar opportunity to develop next generation leaders. Not all companies will go through a major rebranding like I did, but that doesn't mean the skills of pivoting can't be developed in your next generation. Your business is changing, evolving, and adjusting course all the time. As a family business, make sure your next generation's immersed in the strategic planning and direction of your business. Get them involved in making critical decisions and make sure they have the leadership skills to continually rethink, reposition, and lead your business for the next 25 years. Steve Jobs said, build a company that will stand for something a generation or two from now. I agree. But this takes more than just a strong vision laid out by the first generation. This requires an investment in next generation talent that are equipped with the leadership skills to reposition and lead your business. My parents taught me, what's been built has been built. My challenge for you, what are you building next? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.